Daf Yomi Tractate Zevachim, page 76b. Hatinach, it's a few lines into the page with the words Hatinach. Hatinach Hashem log my ikalamimar demalog ze yehin daba dimalav b'torah hu ubayel mikmas demik meets. The Gemara asks a question with regard to the resolution suggested by Rabbi Shimon of bringing the offerings and stating a stipulation. This works out well with regard to the guilt offering, but with regard to the log of oil, what can be said? A log of oil does not accompany a peace offering. The Gemara explains that the individual bringing the offering says, if I am not a leper, then this log shall be a gift to the temple, as one can dedicate oil to the temple. The Gemara questions this resolution, but perhaps he is not, in fact, a leper. And if so, it is required that a priest remove a handful of the donated oil and sacrifice a handful of it on the altar before the rest of the oil may be consumed by the priests, as is the halacha with regard to oil brought as an offering. The Gemara explains that this is referring to a case where the priest already removed a handful. The Gemara further questions, but perhaps he is in fact a leper, and he requires a placement of 7 sprinklings of oil before the Lord. See Leviticus 14, 15, and 16. The Gemara answers that the priest does place these sprinklings. If the Gemara raises a difficulty. How can the priest sprinkle the oil? But it is lacking, as a handful has been removed from the oil, and one sprinkles only from a whole log. The Gemara explains that after the handful is removed, the priest brings a little more oil to the container and fills it up to a log. This is, as we learned in the Mishnah in the Gaim 14:10, in a case where the log lacked a full measure, that if it became lacking before the priest poured from it into his palm in order to place it on the right thumb and big toe of the leper, he shall fill it. Or demaktar le. The Gemara poses yet another question. But if he's not a leper and the log of oil is a gift, that handful removed from the oil requires burning on the altar for the remainder of the oil to be permitted to the priests. The Gemara explains that the priest does in fact burn the handful. Emas ibasa matnos sheva aveluhu shiraim shechas ubein kemitzak tare. The Gemara asks, when does the priest burn the handful? If he does so after the placement of 7 sprinklings for the leper's purification, in such a case the log will be lacking due to the sprinklings. That which remains is akin to the remainder of a meal offering that was lacking between the removal of the handful and the burning, and one may not burn the handful for that remainder. Similar to the gift of oil in a meal offering, a handful is removed from the offering, then sacrificed on the altar. If after the handful is removed, but before it is sacrificed, some of the remainder of the meal offering is separated, the handful may not be sacrificed. The same should apply if some of the oil was sprinkled after the handful was removed. I kodem matanos sheva kol shememeno ishim harehu bebal taktiru. If alternatively the priest burns the handful before the placement of 7 sprinklings, once he has burned the handful, he may no longer perform the sprinklings in accordance with the principle. Whatever is partly burned in the fire on the altar is subject to the prohibition. You may not make as an offering. See Leviticus 2:11. This principle states that if part of an item, such as the blood of an animal offering or the handful of a meal offering, has been sacrificed, one who sacrifices any other part of it that is not designated for sacrifice has violated a prohibition. The sprinkling of the oil is equivalent to sacrifice in this regard. Amar Rav Yehuda bereid Rav Shimon ben Pazi Timaasek lehu l'shem etzim Netanya Rabbi Eliezer Omer Nereach nichoach Yatamale Avalatamale. Rabbi Yehuda, son of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, says that the priest does not sprinkle the oil as a definite rite, but stipulates that if the man is not a leper, he is sprinkling in a manner analogous to other items that one burns for the sake of wood, meaning as fuel for the altar and not as a sacrificial rite. As it is taught in Braita that Rabbi Eliezer says, the verse states, "No meal offering that you shall bring to the Lord shall be made with leaven. For you shall make no leaven, nor any honey, smoke from it as an offering made by fire to the Lord. As an offering of first fruits, you may bring them to the Lord, but they shall not come up for a pleasing aroma on the altar." Leviticus 2:11 and 12. This verse indicates that you may not offer up leaven and honey as a pleasing offering, a pleasing aroma and offering, but you may offer up leaven and honey and other substances. Continued on the next daf.